My mother had moved into my home the year before I met Chris. Um, we had put new siding on it because she had sold our family's home. My father had passed, and when she moved up with me, I had I had been doing okay. There was siding on the house, and I had older windows, and I put plastic on them in the winter, and I cared for my house meticulously. When I had moved in, I had just a white vinyl flooring installed on the main floor. It was a bungalow, and gray carpeting in the basement. And I lived there several years after my father had passed. And I had my own mortgage. It was a $38,000 mortgage. And but eventually things started happening to her house. The trees blew down in the yard. People, just things were going wrong for her, and she couldn't cope anymore. So I said, she sort of suggested that we move in together, and I just couldn't move down there. I had just gotten into a mortgage myself, and I was at the age where I needed to start to move on with my own life. So she moved in with me, and when she moved in after selling her house, she wanted to put siding on it, and she put new windows and made it comfortable. She wasn't there with me even a year, and Chris's father brought him over for a visit. And people foretold and people said, but there's nothing you could do. I got wrapped up in the whole thing. And perhaps when you believe in God, you follow what you feel is there. Or you can't get down from it and you keep going. But I did understand eternity myself, and I did understand being very careful. And he had a good job, and he didn't do drugs. And he had always been kind to people, and from what people said around town about him. And he wasn't going out with me maybe even, 3 months? January, February, March, April, 4 months. And he moved over with my mother and I. And we were married in August. And he brought, the few things he brought. He's a collector, but he wasn't a big, he didn't have a lot with him when he moved over. It didn't matter. I had a full furnished house. I had been working since 1990. I had a furnished apartment things I had purchased for myself carefully, small secondhand things first, and then gradually newer items. I wasn't a fan of credit. My father taught me not to fall into that trap. But one of the things he brought with me was an album. He had a few albums, and it was by some woman, an artist in Newfoundland. I don't remember. I had never heard of her. But the artist, maybe she was from Ontario, because Chris had summered in Ontario, as near as I know, learning it more and more lately, or since we've been going to his aunt's every summer. So he has a whole nother life up here that I don't really see, but may have existed. And it was called Whisper to a Scream. And I sometimes looked at it after we were married for a while, and I thought, I hope that's not a foretelling of something that's to come, because it just does feel sometimes like when you go to complain or you want to complain, one, you've made the agreement to stay forever. Two, you have the child. Three, you've given up your career, and you've tried. You can't get it back. You have tried. And like I said, a person who can absorb, who seems to be able to take control of a whole room, a whole situation, can also seem to become the person who's doing the hiring, and so you just can't get something and get ahead. And you want to complain, but you're afraid that what if he does something and hurts himself, or people start hitting him, or coming down on him, just because you've finally had to speak the truth, because you can't find another way to get it out. There's no one else you can plague with your life, because there's nothing really they can do for you because of this agreement that you've both made. You don't want to hurt your child, you don't want to cause trouble, but you can see that if your child is falling into the same routine that you were falling into, and you're both becoming mute. The song, Emma, do you want to build a snowman? That thing. It's just, the fun is gone. The child is now, like I said, Utah marriage age. It's just something else comes into the family home. I can't be the only one who's seen it. I've seen it happen in other families, and I've seen children taken from their mother at 14 before. So I know it's not specific to this family. It may have nothing to do with this actual family. I am crying for help. I'm not trying to hurt anybody but the people who are causing it, but it exists. And being nice and quiet and afraid to speak your mind doesn't help. Falling into somebody constantly at your head with the sound waves wanting to get you into a court because it will waste your time and waste money that you don't have and keep you from your child for days on end. Where we live, put you in separate towns from where your child is so that they have, again, access to your child and your now aging mother to abuse them further, because you can see it. I mean, you're mental, but you can perceive how these sorts of things happen to people.